Hi, my name's Dave Hall, and we're going to do a video today for pre-tripping a commercial vehicle. This vehicle I'm in is a shuttle bus, and it takes a Class B passenger endorsement license to drive this vehicle. To take a test at the DMV, you need to learn many things about how to pre-trip a vehicle, and today we're going to go over most of those things. You need to read the book yourself and study it, and then look at this video a few times and try to memorize each step. Let's get started. I would like to start at the back of the bus and then go around the bus. You'll see why it helps if you always do a pre-trip the same direction. Okay, now we're at the back of the bus. This is where we want to start a pre-trip. You've probably already signed the papers from the DMV examiner, and from now on you're on your own. You have to tell the examiner verbally everything that needs to be done in a pre-trip. Okay, here we go. We come to the back of the bus. We look to see if the bus is level. Say the bus wasn't level, you'd be looking for broken springs or maybe a bad tire. The air pressure is too low on one side or something like that. So you always look to see if the bus is leaning. Next thing you do, you want to look underneath the bus to see if there's any fluids. We're always looking for water, oil, grease, and fuels like diesel or gasoline. This is a gasoline vehicle. Then we look between the tires and see if there's any rocks stuck in between the tires. Now we want to look around the bus and see if there's any obstacles. You notice there's some trees. Make sure there's nothing hanging down low around the bus that would be an obstruction. No people, no children, anything. You look all the way around the bus. Now we want to look at the body condition itself and see the whole body is in good condition. I like to start at the top to see what the body looks like. You notice the clearance lights are in good condition, and tell the inspector after we look at all the lenses on the lights that we're going to actually check the lights. So look at the lights on the top, make sure the clearance lights are in good condition. Come down this way and look at the brake light and the turn signal and the tail lights. Make sure the lenses are in good condition on both sides. Look at the license plate, make sure it's securely mounted, and tell the examiner you're going to be checking the light bulb to see if it's in good working condition. Then we open the back door, make sure the latch is working, and you always want to check to see if the rubber seal or whatever kind of seal it is in good condition. And then close the door, make sure it latches real good. You want to make sure there's no holes in that seal because that's where fumes would come in. So very important you mention that. Next, go down and look at the bumper. Bumper looks like it's secure and in good condition. Next, we can look at the exhaust pipe, and what I do is sometimes just kick it to see that it feels like it's secure. We actually want to be looking underneath the bus. Tell the inspector that you want to look underneath the bus and see if there's any black soot on the joints of the exhaust pipe. Got to make sure there's no leaks in the exhaust system because the fumes would come up into the bus. Then underneath here we have to look at what we could see. There is no spare tire in this bus, but if there was a spare tire, you need to tell them that there's a spare tire and then you would check it. Then we look at what else you could see under there. You got shock absorbers you could see. Make sure the shock absorbers are attached correctly and that there's no leaks. You can look at the axles on the back and see there's no leaks. You can look at the inside of the axles on each side of the tire and see if there's any leaks. You could look for brake fluid leaking there, and you can actually look in this position from side to side at the condition of the tire because you can't see the tire from this side over here. So look at the tire on each side and see if you can see any wear or punctures or breaks in the tire. Underneath this bus is gas tank in the back, so you need to look to see if the gas tank is securely fastened and is not hanging, and make sure there's no hoses that are leaking. You can also look at the back of the frame on the bus, and we can do that on the side too. But look at the frame, see if there's any cracks, anything broken. Look at any wiring. You can look all the way down underneath there and look and see if there's any wiring hanging, any fuel lines, anything that would be a hazard. Look underneath the bus. When you come to the side of the bus, look at the general condition of the bus, look at the windows, make sure they're in good condition. Look at the clearance lights, make sure they're in good condition. Make sure that the reflectors are clean and are attached all the way around the back of the bus and on the sides. We need to, first thing you look at when you're coming down here is make sure the gas cap is tight. And if you've forgotten at that point remember to talk about the gas tank and the fuel lines, because this is a good way to remember it when you come to the gas cap. Did you mention the gas tank? Make sure you mention the gas tank. Next we come, as you're working down the vehicle, just look at things as you're going. The next thing would be the tires and the mud flaps. Now that we're looking at the wheels, there's many things to look at with the wheels in the back here. Look at the mud flap, make sure the mud flap is secure and is not touching the tire. You want to look at the general condition of the wheel, especially the sidewalls of the tires. Make sure that they look like they're in good condition. Check the tread depth. Make sure you got good tread. You've got to have at least two 30 seconds in the rear. And make sure they're the same kind of tires. They don't have to be new tires, but they do have to be the same kind of tires and same size. You also want to check up in between the tires to make sure there's no rocks in between the tires. Next, you want to take a mallet and actually hit the tires with a mallet. You can't just hit it with your hands. You got to actually use a mallet to hit it to see how the tire pressures are between the two tires. Check the inside tire, check the outside tire with a mallet, or some kind of device that will strike it. Sometimes use a tire iron to do that. Then look at the rims. You want to make sure that there's no illegal wells. The rims are in good condition, they're not bent. Look at the axle. Make sure there's no oil coming out of the axle seals. Look at the lug nuts. Make sure that there's no shiny threads. Make sure there's no rust trails. You actually want to see if they're tight. Then you look to see where the valve stem is, and you look to see the valve stem on this tire and the valve stem on that tire. Feel it and see if it looks like it's in good condition. You also want to tell the inspector that if these wheels had spacers, you would check to make sure the spacers are centered. These rear tires do not have spacers on them. Make sure the tires do not touch each other. After you've looked at the tires, look in at the springs. Make sure you don't have more than 1/4 of the springs broken. You can look at the shackles of the springs. You can look at the suspension mounts. See if everything's in good condition. Look at the frame when you're through there. You can see part of the frame. Make sure there's no cracks in it. You can also look at some wiring. Make sure there's no wiring or hoses hanging. And when you're down, tell the inspector that you're going to be looking across at the other tire on the back and make sure you see no brake fluid leaks, any grease, or any broken parts that you can see. Also, when you're done with this tire, you can tell the examiner that you're going to look across at the other tire. While you're under here, you can look at the drive line. Make sure the drive line's not bent. You can look at the straps, what they call the safety straps for the drive line. Make sure they're intact. You can look at the U-joints. You can look at the rear end of the vehicle and see if there's any leaks. You can also look forward when you're down low looking. Tell the examiner you're going to be looking at the rear of the transmission, rear of the engine. You're going to look for leaks all the way along the underneath of the vehicle. You're going to look for wires hanging. You're going to look for any hoses hanging. And you're also going to look at the rest of the exhaust system. Make sure you don't see any black soot at any joint. Okay, the next thing we look at is the rest of the bus towards the front. You might tell the examiner this is the air conditioner for the rear of the bus. Really nothing to check inside that. Then we go to the front, check the door, make sure the door latches, and then look at the rubber seal around here. As you're opening the door, tell the examiner that the emergency brake is on because we're going to be opening the hood up. So always mention the emergency brake is on. Next, you're going to look at the mirror, make sure the mirror is attached well and is in good condition. Make sure it's clean, and tell the examiner that you're going to check when you're inside that both mirrors are adjusted for the driver. Next, we come to the front wheel. Again, we want to look at the mud flap, make sure the mud flap is secure and is not touching the tire. Again, we want to look at the tread depth of the tire, the general condition of it. Make sure you have at least 30 seconds of tread. The front tire has to be a new tire. It can't be a recapped or retread. Look at the side condition of the tire, sidewall. See it's in good condition. What is that right there? And what do we find? A screw in the tire that needs to be fixed. That's why you need to check the general condition of the tires. That's why we have pre-trips on buses. This vehicle will have to go in to get the tire repaired. Again, you want to look at the rim the same as you did in the back. Make sure there's no illegal wells. Make sure it's not bent. See the general condition of the lug nuts. Make sure that you don't see any shiny threads. Make sure they're all tight. You could check by feeling them, and you can also see if there's any rust stains that would be leaving the lug nuts. That usually tells you if you have a loose one. Look at the oil seal at the end of the axle. Make sure there's no leaks there. Tell the examiner that you're going to be looking across at the other one on the other side, on the back side of the other wheel, to make sure that there's no leaks there. Then look at the general condition back behind the tire. You want to look to see if the coil spring is in good condition. You can see the shock absorber. Make sure the shock absorber is attached and is not leaking. You can also look to see part of the frame. Make sure there's no cracks in the frame. You can see brake lines, you can see wiring, you can see hoses. Make sure you see no leaks in there. There's also bolts that hold the steering mechanism. You must make sure that those are tight. See those 3 bolts right there? You also need to check the steering mechanism and the steering linkage. You can see part of it here, and then look from underneath the front of the bus to see if all linkage and the ball joints are all in good condition. You can also look inside the rim. You can see the brake rotor. You can see if the brake rotor is in good condition, and sometimes you can see on the back side of these vehicles how much brake pad you actually have. Tell the examiner you're going to look for that. Okay, now we go around the front of the vehicle. Now that we're at the front of the bus, you need to look to see if the vehicle is leaning one side to the other. Make sure there's no leaks underneath the bus. Again, we're looking for fluids underneath the bus. We're looking for water, oil, grease, any kind of fuels, diesel or gas, depending on the vehicle. Anything you see leaking on the vehicle, you need to check to see what that was. You want to look around the vehicle, like as you can see in this case, we have trees around it. Make sure the trees are not going to damage the vehicle. You need to look for people or children, anything that's around the vehicle. I usually like to start at the top of the bus and look down. Look at the clearance lights on top, make sure they're in good condition. Tell the examiner you're going to check all the lighting after we get into the vehicle. Come down, you want to look at the windshield. Make sure that the windshield is in good condition. There's no cracks and no illegal stickers on the windshield. You also want to check the windshield wipers. Make sure the rubber is soft and in good condition. Check the general condition of the bus. Make sure it is in good condition. Check the headlights and turn signal lenses. Make sure they're in good condition. Check the bumper. Make sure the bumper is secure. Make sure the license plate is attached. Okay, next we're going to check the engine compartment. And as you open the hood, tell the examiner that you have made sure that the emergency brake is on. Okay, now we're going to check the engine compartment. Need to release the hood from the inside of the vehicle and make sure you tell the examiner that the emergency brake is on. Now we're going to open the hood. This is the latch down here that opens the hood, and there's a little stand that holds this up. Next, we're going to look at the different things that need to be checked in the engine compartment. This is the radiator fluid. Make sure the cap is on tight. The next is the brake fluid. Make sure the cap is on tight. This is where you check the power steering fluid. Make sure the cap is on tight. Next is the dipstick for the oil. You would check the oil too. Also, when you're looking in here, you're going to tell the examiner that you're looking for any oil on the engine, any wires or hoses that are close to the engine that are dangerous. You could also check the radiator. This is the radiator right here. Make sure that there's no leaks. Then you come around to this side over here. This is where you would check the transmission fluid when it's running. This is where you put the oil in the vehicle. Also, when you're looking at the engine, check this side also for any leaks. You look down in there and tell the examiner you're looking for any leaks and there are hoses that would be loose. Also, when you're down here, I don't know if you can see it, is the serpentine fan belt, and you look to see if that's in good condition. You also need to tell the examiner that that belt runs around all of the pulleys that operate the different devices like the air conditioner, the power steering and all that. Nothing is controlled mechanically. Need to make sure the battery is in good condition, make sure it is secure. Check the battery connections, make sure they are secure. Tell the examiner that windshield fluid is checked here and that you're going to check the windshield wiper fluid when you get inside. After you're done checking the engine, tell the examiner you would like to leave the hood up, because after you start the engine you would like to come out and check for engine noises and you would look at the side of the engine for exhaust leaks and see if you see any fluid after the vehicle starts. And you could remind the examiner that once the engine is started, you can go along and look underneath the bus to see if there's any fluids dripping. And you can also look for exhaust leaks when the engine's running. Next, we look at the side of the bus. At this point, the examiner will probably ask you if you're going to do the same thing on this side of the bus as you did the other side. Just tell them yes, and 99% of the time they'll tell you, okay, I will give you this side of the bus. Let's go ahead and start doing the inside. So let's do that now. Okay, now as we come to the inside of the bus, the camera is inside the bus looking out. First you want to do is check the general condition of the passenger door, what the rubber feels like. Later we will check to see how the door works mechanically. But right now just check the condition of the door. You want to check the steps, make sure that they're clean, make sure the floor is clean, make sure the caution